Hi again, everybody. Kevin Hicks with another Earthworks Turf Talk. This one's maybe not so Earthworks centric, but has come up a number of times in conversations with superintendents, and I thought it was worth talking about. I'm going to date myself here, but PGRs have been around a long time, and when I got into the industry in the 80s, there were essentially two compounds, one type 1, one type 2. I know you're going to probably throw rocks at me and say, no, there were more than that. But the two main ones were Embark, which was a seed head inhibitor, mefluidide, and then paclobutrazol, which early on came on a fertilizer carrier. That's really what I wanted to key in on here. Um, I had a great tour with a good friend of mine, Lance Lauer, at Castle Pines Country Club last week, and he's got a very aggressive program going to try to minimize the amount of annual bluegrass in his fairways, while giving the competitive edge to the bentgrass that's in those fairways, as well as a really concerted effort on the over and interseeding side of things. But as we were talking, it seemed like the suppression was really, really where he needed to be with respect to the POA, but the bentgrass seemed like it could be moving faster. This was early June, so soil temperatures are just kind of coming up into the higher growth range. And asked him about fertility. And this isn't a Lance Lauer thing. This conversation has been repeated numerous times in my territory. But I don't know that we've accounted for the fertility portion when you're trying to put the brakes on one species and really mash on the gas pedal with something else. I think we're really good at the brake portion, and with some of the work that Bill Kreiser and others have done with growing degree day models, we've really dialed that rate and treatment interval question mark in, and I think we've got great control over that. But the piece that's missing, and I think that's why I wanted to bring this up, is are we providing enough fertility for the desired species to really get a foothold? Um, Early on in my career in the 80s and early 90s, we just had a couple of compounds available, and one of them was paclobutrazol, but it was available on a fertility carrier. It was a 3137 analysis with all ammoniacal nitrogen, and that really, I think, provided a kick when you had the POA on the ropes. It really provided that kick that the bentgrass needed to get going and fill in. The recommended rates of Scott's, which is now Anderson's, uh, had on their label was very high. I think it was a range of zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.9 pounds of N per thousand. That was all ammoniacal N, so you had a flush of growth. But it really accomplished what I think a lot of us are trying to do now, in a pretty easy package, a pretty easy plug and play type of delivery system. Um, so my question to you is, if your goal is to try to get a competitive edge for bentgrass, are you providing that plant with enough nitrogen, enough food during the process and during the suppression of the POA plants to really get that stuff to race and to move into those areas that are clearly suppressed? Like I said, a lot of credit to Bill Kreiser and those that have built some really solid growing degree day models, but I think that missing link is we're not giving enough credence to the gas pedal while we've got the brake applied. And I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, but in this case, you're kind of driving your car like my grandmother used to drive hers. She would just let off on the brake a little bit with the gas always down. So something to think about. I think really giving every competitive edge to the desired species is really the goal. If the goal is to manage growth and putting quality, totally different conversation. But if your goal is really to try to get bent grass to take over those areas, I I think we're not putting enough uh, enough value in the nutrient in the nitrogen levels to get that bent grass to really creep into those areas. So something to think about. Again, not a real earthwork centric conversation, but one that I've had a lot of discussions with superintendents over the last couple of years, and I think maybe we've kind of forgotten some of the early notions of those types of compounds. So hope that gets you thinking a little bit. If you've got questions, certainly reach out to me, um, and we can talk about it a little bit further. Thanks, and have a great day.